someone else.
Yeah. Now we are live.
Woo!
Class number 19.
What?
I said class number 19.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You not
Hearing.
you can't hear?
That was a shocked what? How did we get to 19? Didn't we just start?
We did 18 ago.
Nice.
Yeah, we've been doing this, been in this conversation for a while. It's a big conversation.
Yeah.
We're gonna do some Q&A today, answering a lot of the questions that came in.
Yes.
And share some of our thoughts, not just about the questions, but about some of the things that the questions inspired in us. Whoops, hang on.
Calm down.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen all the videos or you want to watch the videos again, where can they go, Michelle?
They can go to a playlist that is on Facebook, on the Coach Sean Smith Facebook page. I'll put a link in the chat. It's just bit.ly/Facebook replays, or same bit.ly/YouTube replays. So there's entrepreneur training for coaches on both places, both platforms, that has a playlist of all of the videos current at the top.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys, several people are coming in and you haven't seen the previous videos. Maybe you just heard about the series or the challenge. What challenge? That's kind of a callback in the community right now, because we're talking about how a lot of times you share something and people don't always know what's going on. And that's just a function of the world that we live in and the algorithms that we wrestle with all the time. And so if you haven't watched all the videos, that's totally fine. We're actually going to speak to that here in a moment. And a lot of you are watching on YouTube, and we have YouTube memberships that might be service for you as well. We've got 3 different levels, and the highest level, actually, we do a lot more engagement, interaction. We do like website audits and breakdown coaching sessions and stuff like that. So if that's something that you want to look into, then you can. And then there's a couple different levels where you could just support the channel, or you can get some of the kind of behind the scenes, day in the life sort of videos and so forth. So check that out if you want to learn a little bit about that. So I want to start with the idea of not keeping up, not keeping pace. Several people have mentioned, and we hear this all the time, so this isn't anything unique to this series, but anytime there are a lot of like sequential videos or modules of any kind, it's easy for us to not keep up.
Yeah.
And every online course we've ever done, it always has attrition. So there are a lot more people that start than finish.
Yeah.
And there are many factors to talk about there, but the one I really want to focus on is that we are typically programmed to learn linearly.
Yeah.
So in school, if you haven't passed 2nd grade, you don't just get to go to 9th grade. If you took a few years off and all your friends are now in 9th grade, so you just want to slide right back in 9th grade. That's not how it works. And most of the institutional programs that we have, and institutional programming that we have, is sequential in nature and linear. So step 1 leads to step 2, which leads to step 3, and so forth. And sometimes there's learning that does require that. So I'm not saying that any online course you get, you just go all over the place and go out of order. However, there is something that I do want to speak to that is really important for us all to understand, because this applies to me too, and I know it applies to Michelle too. We tend to think if we get behind, it'll take a long time to catch up. And then whatever reasons are present for us to get behind probably won't allow us to catch up. So if it's hard, did you want to say something to that?
I just want that to land, right? Like, so we say, I'm gonna catch up, but the reasons that allowed us to get behind in the first place, they're probably not going to change, which is going to make it harder to do the thing we're telling ourselves we're going to do. It's huge.
Yeah, symptoms versus systems.
Yeah.
So there's a system at play for the most part. I mean, people could, have family in town for a few days and so forth, but we're not really talking about that. If there's a system at play that is causing a challenge of any kind, in this case, not able to keep up with the classes, then that system is not going to allow to catch up with the classes either, usually. And this isn't all bad, by the way. I'm not saying that like everything you ever sign up with or for, you got to figure out a way to do it and you can't quit. And so we're not like using any shame or any of that sort of stuff, around these videos or any other videos. We're just saying that well over 20 plus combined years between Michelle and I, we take a look at what causes people to sabotage themselves and what are the systems at play. Because without the system work, nothing can actually change. We can only make short-term pressurized improvements that are going to go back to what the systems are designed to do. Because the systems essentially are recipes of our lives. And so you can't just force a few ingredients or remove a few ingredients and change the overall recipe. The recipe will produce whatever it produces. So what we're highlighting here is a programming that most of us have around our learning, which is linear and modular. Modular.
Yes.
Modular learning. So it's this module and then that module and then that module, and they all go, but they all go in order. But the thing that we're really highlighting here is the belief that if I can't keep up, then I can't catch up. Or if I missed, in this case, let's say class number 5 and they're doing class number 9, well, I can't watch class number 9 until I go back and do class number 5, or I can't engage, or some other version of you can't until.
Yes. Whew.
Yeah, that just hit me. Because you can't until is one of the sabotage templates that destroys our effort. Because it's actually a sexy, because it sounds smart. Yes. It sounds really smart because we're actually following the rules. We're doing it the right way. And if we, we don't want to skip steps. And so we can't do this until, but then we can't until becomes this runaway train, and it jumps the tracks, and then it takes over all kinds of areas of our lives. And then we can't do this until we lose weight. And then we can't do this until we get it right. And then we can't do this until we're no longer afraid of the spotlight. And then we can't do this until we're perfect. And then we can't do this until, and then all the mind needs to hear is we can't until, and then it doesn't even need an answer after until. And then all we hear is we can't. And this is a neurological pattern, you guys. Most of it, I love the comment. We're up in your business because we're up in our business, right? And this is the way humans do things.
Yeah.
Most of you have heard of the Pavlov dogs experiment. I'm sure it's to some degree. It's been used in so many different ways. The Pavlov's dogs experiment was essentially this researcher, Pavlov, would ring a bell and then give the dogs food, and then ring a bell and give the dogs food. And eventually, when he would ring the bell, the dogs would know there's food coming, and the dogs would start to salivate. And then he could ring the bell and the dogs would salivate even when there wasn't food. And even when food stopped being introduced, the dogs would still salivate. Yeah. Here's why this is really important to understand. The dogs started to react to the trigger, no longer whether there was food or not. So what I just said is an example of that. We don't even need the until condition answered.
Yeah.
After a certain point, all we know is we can't.
Yeah.
And then we're just salivating at the bell. Like, oh, we can't. Nah, I don't need to know why I can't, because I just can't.
Yeah.
That's what we're getting at here, you guys.
Mhm.
And we've also been talking so much about creativity.
Mhm.
Creativity is not linear.
Right.
It's not modular. It's not convenient. It's not comprehensible to the intellectual mind.
Yeah.
You cannot comprehend. Your intellect cannot comprehend something that it doesn't relate to. And intellect and creativity are on completely opposite ends of the human spectrum.
Right.
Your creativity also can't understand your intellect. We're talking about two fundamentally different animals.
Mhm.
But because our intellect is so developed and we're so familiar with it, we want our intellect to understand everything because it's the intellect that keeps us safe, which it does. And the number one core human desire is safety.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to die, right? I mean, that's clear. So the intellect is the one that's in charge of that. Creativity doesn't keep us safe. Creativity doesn't keep us protected. Creativity doesn't help us from making mistakes. Creativity doesn't even understand what a mistake is. Like, genuinely, creativity doesn't understand the concept of mistake. Creativity doesn't understand the concept of right and wrong. So every time we ask a version of what is the right thing to do and what's the not wrong thing to do, we're literally asking questions that creativity doesn't understand, but we're applying them to creativity. Now, having said all of that, I love the fact that you guys are asking questions that I am positive you've never asked before.
Yeah.
You're asking questions about creativity you've never asked, which means you're doing things you haven't done. You're thinking in ways you haven't thought about before. And that lights me up so much. Now, I know a lot of the questions aren't answerable in a way that you can comprehend them with the intellect, nor are they comfortable, nor is some of the stuff you're doing comfortable. I get it, and I love it, and I celebrate that so much because you're beyond your intellectual comfort zone about creativity, and I know that creativity being unlocked is what we all need. It's what the world needs. It's what you need as a creative entrepreneur.
Right.
So I care less about what's in these questions and more about the fact that there are these questions, because you're questioning something, which means you're studying something. You're studying the craft of creativity. And for that, I honor you. Regardless of what answers come in, you're studying the craft. And here's what I also know. If we're going to personify creativity here, your creativity is so excited but still suspicious that you're asking it questions, or you're asking questions on its behalf.
Yeah.
Trust me. It's like, oh, she's paying attention to me. Yeah. But wait, is this going to last? I mean, it truly is a relationship where this thing called creativity has been unnurtured and abandoned for a long time. This is the human journey, you guys. This isn't anything demeaning about any one of you individually or all of you collectively, because I still do it. Michelle still does it. We're just a little further on the path. And we know what it's like to go back and go, oh, this is something different. Yeah. This is truly a new thing. All right, I'll stop there. If there's anything you want to add to that before we get to the questions, then go ahead and do it. And then we got a lot of questions to answer.
Yes, I'm excited about them. I think it's just to highlight, like, when we're in that space that I can't because, right, or I can't until, we actually put ourselves in the position of being powerless to our circumstances, right? So we become the victim in that situation where everything, if everything else would be in alignment. And one of the sad things about that for me is that when we actually do something, we don't celebrate it. Right.
Yeah.
We don't take any credit. We don't feel good about it because we have told ourselves that the only reason we did that is because everything out there shifted. So our intellect wants to be in control. So just open your awareness to the story, right? This is not, in my experience with myself, with our clients, with my personal clients, this is not something that, you've been operating this way for a long, long time. It's not something that's just going to turn off tomorrow. But the more you can be aware of where that story is playing out, of just noticing the programming. Are you telling yourself, oh, I can't do that because I haven't done that? Are you feeling anxious or stressed because you haven't, whatever? Just notice the stories, begin to open your awareness to that, because all of this is the human journey. Right? This is the human journey, and an internal commitment, whether we're conscious of it or not, to doing it right and being perfect is essentially us kind of beating ourselves up for being human on a human journey. And I don't want that for you.
Yeah, that's so true. Because can't is a condition. We're saying you are powerless. Now, once upon a time, that phrase was in the second person, meaning somebody said, you can't, or we interpreted it that way from external. But then once it's internal, we shut ourselves down before anybody else can. But we do it. I'm just highlighting what Michelle said. We do it on behalf of external circumstances. So until the external circumstances change, I remain powerless.
Right.
And then when the external circumstances change, that's the only time that I can react to something now being so safe. And we don't celebrate that as a step because it really wasn't us.
Right.
It only happened because the external circumstances changed. And as soon as the sun goes back down, we got to go back inside.
Right.
So now we're constantly chasing. We're constantly reacting. We're not creating. We're not creating from a place of being powerful and being able to influence our external circumstances, which means we have no agency over our external circumstances. And guess where all of your seekers are? They're not inside you. They are outside of you. Guess where all the marketing happens? Outside of you. Guess where your messaging needs to reach people? Outside of you. Guess where all the social media platforms are? Outside of you. Yeah. So this is the system underneath that shows up on the surfaces. The system underneath has to change. And we don't want you to build anything from I am powerless until something or somebody gives me that power.
Right.
Because even if anything succeeds, it's succeeding on a foundation of powerlessness.
Right.
And that's disrespectful to your soul.
Amen.
Yeah. And we're only telling on ourselves out loud. That's all we're doing. We're just telling you about our journey from a few years ago. And that's why several of you are in the comments saying, get out of my head, get out of my business, get off my toes. We're just telling on ourselves because this is the human journey. The human, as a child, wants to do and explore and push boundaries and understand where the rules are and understand where the lines are. And then somebody or something says, no, you can't do that. Go backwards or you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And then we keep ourselves inside doing that. And what we trap is our creativity. That's what is trapped inside.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the nurturing of our creativity in another video because it'll take a little bit longer than we want to spend on this video, and we want to get to these
yummy
Q&A session. But just to seed this idea, creativity develops just like a child. The intellect develops just like a child. Our behaviors develop. Most of us have undeveloped creativity, but we're demanding that it be developed at the same rate or at the same age as we have. Like we've left it in the past, but then because time on the calendar changed, we expect it to have developed with us when we locked it away. It doesn't work that way. So we're going to get into the development of creativity, and the discomfort that any of you might be feeling is because of that gap.
Yeah.
It's because you're demanding an undeveloped entity to be developed. But here's the good thing. The problem is the expectation. The problem isn't that it's undeveloped, or the problem isn't that there's a gap. The problem is the expectation. That's it. That's the problem. So, but we can't change our expectations until we understand. It's like if you don't know that dogs can't talk, you know, and you try to teach your dog to talk like somebody taught you to talk, you might get really, really irritated until somebody goes, those don't talk.
Right.
Oh, okay. So then once you understand that, you'll stop placing ridiculous and impossible expectations. And think about it. All the areas in your life that you don't place false expectations because you understand. But then all the areas of our life internally that we do place false expectations because we don't understand. So we'll dive into that with a little bit more dissection. So let's get to some of these questions, Michelle.
Yeah, I like it. So we're going to start with the questions from last week, or not last week, from earlier this week. So the first one is...
It was only 2 days ago, you guys, 2 days ago, class 17. It's the second time today she called it last week. It's like 48 hours ago. Michelle she puts a lot of time in her, she puts a lot of years in every day.
Every day.
That's good. You just live a long life.
Yes, yes. So how do we make content in one place accessible in another place? For example, I have a podcast, On Leash Unleashed, listed on Spotify. That's my current, consistent, mostly creation. So how do I get people to it?
It seems like the two questions on the front and the end might be different, unless I'm just receiving them differently. But how do you get people to it? You promote it. And I don't mean to sound dismissive or anything, but like promote it everywhere. And one of the things that we talked about on that last Q&A call last month, which was promote more than you think.
Yeah.
And that's really the only way that more people are going to see your stuff. So to get them there, over promote it. To share it across different platforms. I mean, I don't know another way. I'm not trying to sound like a smart alecky, but you've got to cross promote it from different platforms. So, you know, if we're talking about Spotify, you can, wherever you're making your posts, from Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and just send everybody to Spotify. Or if you've got it on several different platforms, podcast platforms, then what I hear all the time is people just go wherever you get your podcast. Mine's there. And then people have their own familiar place that they like to go. And then you can have all the links, right? You got your Spotify link, and I'm blanking right now on the other platforms aside from Spotify. iTunes is one of them.
Apple.
Yeah, Apple Podcasts or what have you. So you just put those everywhere, and you just want to give everybody all the places that they can find your thing. And it's like giving them all kinds of doors, and they'll come in their own, whatever they're most familiar with. Yeah. One of the mistakes here, this goes beyond just the scope of this, the specifics in this question. One of the mistakes that a lot of us make, I made it for years and years and years, is that we only market the way we like to consume. So like, if you really like podcasts, you might only do podcasts. I don't really like just podcasts. I like videos. So my tendency is to just do videos. And in a tell on myself transparency, we've got thousands of hours of audio that's not on podcast.
Right.
And I even have we have a podcast. We have a podcast set up for a long, long time, but my focus is on video. And part of my mistake in that is that that's my favorite mode. But there are a lot of people that aren't listening to some of these things. And all we got to do is take the audio from the video and put it on a podcast.
Yep.
And maybe just switch it up a little bit. Right. So, market to people the way that they are consuming. That's one of the reasons why seeker interviews is so important.
Yeah. That's the only thing that I would add is what you just said. What are the platforms? Where are the people who are listening to your podcast? Where are they? And how can you put it in their face? Yeah. Nice. All right. So the next question, my seeker's profile has changed and been refined since I started my podcast. So this is a follow-up to that question. How does that enter into the equation if it does?
If you want to change your messaging to match the seeker being more clarified, then you can. In podcasts, a lot of people will divide their podcasts into seasons. So season 1 might come to a conclusion, and then season 2 might be more focused on that individual seeker if it's become more clear. But I would say make that change justifiable. What I mean by that is, if we were to look at your podcast listens, are they actually going down? Or it's possible that your seeker might be getting clarified, but it's because of the podcast that you've been doing it the way you've been doing it.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we'll make changes that aren't justified changes because we have a thought. It might make sense, but the way you're doing it actually might be the thing that's creating the success. But if your podcasts seem to go down, your engagement starts to go down, and then you think, oh, it's probably because I'm not speaking directly to this particular seeker, then go ahead and make that change. And you don't have to go from one all the way to the other also. You can just do a few episodes to your new seeker profile and see if there's any difference between those two.
Yeah. And just as a follow-up from what we spoke about on the last Q&A call 48 hours ago, oftentimes we think, because we're in the conversation in our heads internally, that it's a much bigger deal for us than it is for them. A lot of times they don't notice. Like it's not anything that really would be a big deal for you to change directions with your messaging without having to make a big announcement. Sometimes, and this might not apply to you specifically, but sometimes we're like, oh, I got to make this big announcement. And 90% of the people on your profile didn't even know you had a podcast or
what podcast,
exactly,
what challenge,
right? Or any of that. So just consider that, because it's in your head. So you're probably giving it a lot more attention than they are at this time.
And one of the cool things about podcasts, especially once you have an audience that's relatively engaged, is you just ask them if they want the topics to change, if they want the structure to change. My experience, not my personal experience, because we did a podcast years ago. Somebody just said, we didn't know you had a podcast. So yes, my podcast is called The Truth About Coaching. It is on iTunes, I think.
It is. It's also on Apple.
Okay. So apparently it's on Apple. We've got a lot of content in the hopper that just hasn't gotten out. And, but I want to say that because that'll add some accountability here, so that you guys, but there's like 10 episodes right now, something like that you can listen to right away. What was I saying right before that?
I wasn't listening.
Okay. Good. Whatever I was saying, it was going to be good. So
the link to the podcast is in the chat.
I know what I was saying.
Perfect.
I was saying that from what I hear, just talking to other people that do podcasts, like only podcasts, podcasts is a little bit more of an intimate experience, meaning that podcast listeners, when the host is open and wants engagement, podcast listeners are a little bit more engaged, in sending messages and sending emails than YouTube. That's just from what I hear. So, I mean, I can speak to the somewhat lack of engagement on YouTube versus other platforms, but if you invite your podcast listeners into conversations, you're probably going to get a little bit more engagement than some of the other platforms.
All right. One of the challenges I had with this exercise, which is a good thing because I want to break free from this pattern, is the rereading and rereading of the original writing, almost like I'm studying to write a report on it, like in school. It was harder to let my own thoughts come in. What I thought of this morning is to read it a couple times, then walk away from it or exit my computer and write without it in front of me, or go for a walk or do the dishes or some short activity before writing from me. Or was it part of the exercise to practice writing spontaneously and feel the creative juices right there at the surface waiting to come out?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm saying yes to the last.
Mm-hmm.
It was part of the exercise. Whatever you experienced was part of the exercise, because there is no right way.
Yeah.
And everything that you experience is perfect. I mean, truly. And I'm not saying that again to be dismissive or sound like a smart aleck. Whatever you experience is perfect. In the world of mastery learning, you guys, and embodiment, we're just exploring what is. We're not demanding what is be what we wished it was. But that's the way we're taught to learn. And that's the way we're taught to suppress ourselves. When we look at embodiment, we're just going, what is? When I do this thing, what comes up? When I close my eyes, what do I think about?
Yeah.
When I try to do this activity, how do I feel? And it's just an exploration of what is. We are programmed and conditioned to either dismiss or judge negatively what is. And that's one of the reasons why we don't change it, because we don't actually embrace what is. Right. You can never change what you haven't embraced. Yeah. Yes, there is a whole lot to unlearn. Now, we say that as hopefully an invitation, but not a shutdown. The good news is, it's not going to take as long to unlearn as it took to learn.
Absolutely not.
Nowhere near. And the results of unlearning happen a lot faster along the path than learning. So you might unlearn through a few days, a few weeks, a few months, maybe something that you had taken decades to learn. And the result of that unlearning is exponentially higher than what took 5 years to learn and what that produced. Yeah. So that's what I want you to really understand, that it will take time. Nobody knows how long, but it will be way shorter than you think it will take. As long as we're not using the expectation of, I should just be able to flip the switch, right? Your intellect wants it to be immediate. But when we understand this stuff and go, whoa, I got a lot of layers to take off. It's actually going to go a lot faster, especially when you don't have a timeline on it. When you don't have pressurized deadlines, it'll go faster. And there's success and joy and presence and fulfillment immediately along the way. Because remember, this isn't modular. This isn't, you got to get to the end of a finish line before you experience any of the results of the unlearning. Modular learning says you got to learn all this stuff first, get to the finish line, and then something happens. The beauty in this is exact opposite. Something happens while you're unlearning, because there are no finish lines here.
Yeah. What I was thinking when you were talking is that learning is stacked, like it's stacked, right? Like we learn something, it stacks almost sequentially, right? Modularly, like we talked about earlier. And so when we unlearn, if it's all stacked up this way, when we unlearn, it oftentimes drops many things, right? So it's not, we don't unlearn in that same way. So sometimes unlearning just one thing causes multiple dominoes to be able to drop. And
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's like the crate challenge, the milk crate challenge, right? That's where you were getting at, right?
No, I don't know what that is.
I'm being funny, but it actually does apply. So recently, in the spirit of a lot of the challenges out there that are ridiculous and actually quite dangerous, one of them, I think it's called the milk crate. You stack crates, you know, those what
Milk crates.
the milk, comes in, and so they're empty, and you stack them, and they're very unstable as you stack them, but you stack them like in a pyramid, and
Okay.
then you climb up them. So the challenge is you climb up them, and they're stacked like, you know, like 8 feet high, 10 feet high. So it takes a while to stack them. All you got to do is Google some
Okay.
milk crate challenge, and you'll see how fast they come down.
Right.
So that was literally, that actually was my visual when you said that. So
Perfect.
it takes a while to stack them, and it takes a while to climb them, but when they fall, they'll fall. Now, you won't get injured doing this work like many people get injured during the milk crate challenge, but the concept applies. It can come down a lot faster. These can melt away a lot faster than it took to stack them on top of each other.
I love that. And then the only other thing I wanted to add to the question that came in is just one of the things that helped me out a lot along my journey is just to pre-decide that whatever I was experiencing was right.
Yeah.
All right. So our next question, this is, these are all so good. Okay. So when I post, I feel unappreciated, not enough engagement. What's your take on that?
I'm not laughing because it's comical. I'm laughing because that's so real and common and painful for me in the past. I know for Michelle, unappreciated. Ooh. So I feel still the same way. I still feel the lack of appreciation. I don't know. I personally haven't learned how to remove that judgment.
Yeah.
I've just learned how to focus on the tiny number rather than the big one. The tiny number is the people that are paying attention. And sometimes that number is 1. And sometimes that number is not yet, but they're on their way. The huge number is the number that we've made up in our expectation who should be watching, the people that should be paying attention.
Right.
So it's really just a matter of focusing on and this is why secret interviews are so powerful also, focusing on the single person that did pay attention. I was in a place last night where I was going through this. Like, we're doing all this stuff, and I don't know if people care. I don't know if they're getting it. I don't know if they like it. I don't know if we're doing a disservice. I don't know. I don't know. And I was in this place of, like, is it worth it? That truly, I was just in that place. It's just part of the human journey.
Yeah. Mine is, does it matter?
Yeah. Which is just a half a step away from, do I matter?
Exactly.
So that vein is something that most of us have. To some degree, the details might be different. And while I was in that place, I got a text on my phone. And somebody said, man, I got to tell you, all these live videos you're doing, it's so helpful and appreciative. A single person sending a single text, and that snapped me out. Oh, he's listening. All right. So let's do the next one for him. And that doesn't mean I'm, dismissing anybody that didn't text me last night. I'm just saying that's the human journey. We got to get up and do it for someone. I was going to say something, but someone is usually going to get us taking more action than something, especially when the thing is tangible like money or some kind of status or some level of external validation, success, approval. That actually doesn't have the power to inspire most of us.
Yeah.
So we need to be inspired to get up when we've been knocked down. We need to be inspired to speak when it feels like we've been muted.
Right.
We need to be inspired over the emotional obstacles. External conditions don't do that for most of us. If they do it for you, awesome. You wouldn't still be listening.
Right.
We got to find the thing that inspires us to just keep going. And it's usually a function of the conflict of all the stuff we're talking about, the expectations, the comparison. We see other people doing their videos and they seem to get all these, all the engagement and things go viral and all that kind of stuff. This game is really a quality versus quantity conflict, because none of the social media companies are trying to change anybody's lives. Not a single one of them. They're trying to make money. And they make money off human attention. They don't make money off human transformation. So we're playing the transformation game on information platforms. The good news is we can play the long game. We can appeal to people. We can play quality over quantity and have fundamentally transformed lives and fundamentally transform other people's lives.
Sure.
So going back to the question, the idea of feeling unappreciated is a function of what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the not, or are you focusing on the is? If one person saw your video, change their life. If you got one person to show up in your classroom, give them everything you got. And if you change that life, they'll tell some folks, and just the energy will be a magnet. And maybe the next class you might have 2, and then maybe the class after that you might even have 3. When I first started, my first classes were all free classes. This is back in the teleseminar days. And I think the first class I had like 4 people on. And I just said, hey, if you like this, invite some friends. And I think the next class, like a couple of days later, had 7 or something like that. And then I think the following class had 15. And then the next one had like 20. It's just a process of starting where you are and just trying to progress. If we focus on progress rather than production, especially when that production is coming out of our intellect and our desire and our wounds and our comparison, if we just focus on progress, then we'll feel better. And there's all kinds of quotes and ideas, the 1,000-mile journey starts with a single step. Those are endearing ideas and quotes because they're actually true. It's just that we don't live like they are. We like them because we know to some degree they're true. We just don't live like it. Why? Because that knowledge isn't in our bodies. It's only in our minds. That like we like it, but we don't know it. It's not in our bones because the programming of our intellect is just too powerful. And it's constant. It's literally 24 hours a day. And we don't have the ability to take a thought and then disrupt decades worth of programming. So that's why we've got to do embodiment work, you guys.
Right.
That's why we've got to reprogram it's like building a new set of tracks. The intellectual set of tracks will never go away. The ego's tracks will never go away. The desires that all these systems are built upon will never go away, but we can build another set of tracks. And every so often we can just get the train to go on those tracks. And then every so often we can get the train to go a little bit further on those tracks. And then we can get the train to jump the ego intellectual tracks a little less often. And when it jumps the tracks, we can get it to go back a little quicker. That's unlearning. That's the unlearning process. And when we get some momentum with that, we can actually unlearn, as we said earlier, much, much faster.
Yeah.
So back to this idea of appreciation. Oh, that's such a deep one. It's our relationship with feedback.
Yeah.
And what does their feedback mean about us?
Right.
And if we're focusing on what's not there, we're usually making something up that literally doesn't exist, because those people actually are not appreciating you. More often than not, they didn't know that video existed. Yeah. So they're not rejecting you. They just didn't even know. But we take it as a rejection because we've created this idea that there should be all these people. Back when I used to do a lot of coaching in the direct sales world, people would tell me all the time, I've got 10 people joining my business this month. I've got 20 people coming to this meeting tomorrow night. We always put these expectations in the future. And then if I expect 20 people in my meeting tomorrow and only 12 show up, I'll probably focus on the 8 that aren't there and experience the lack of appreciation that you're talking about, instead of changing the 12 lives that showed up. And that same process is really what we're talking about here. We project our expectations in the future, and then when our expectations are not met, which is only going to happen 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking. 100% of the time, what we wished would happen is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the projections are based on false expectations anyway. And if something does break through, let it be a surprise. So this journey is so much about our relationship to feedback, our relationship to appreciation. What is that appreciation? What does it mean about you when people do watch? What does it mean about you when people don't watch? It's that relationship that needs to change. I don't know of a way. I don't care if you're talking about Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, Lisa Nichols, any of the big, personal development gurus that we all know and love. If you knew the numbers behind the scenes, like you might see the numbers of the videos. And if you don't believe me, go check. Go look at a video from your favorite guru. Go look at a Jack Canfield video, a Lisa Nichols video, Tony Robbins video, like on YouTube. You look at the video and go, whoa, 5,000 views. Great. Look how many subscribers there are. They might have 500,000 subscribers and 10,000 views. The percentage, it's the same. It's just the numbers are elevated.
Yeah.
But we tend to look at just the gross numbers and go, oh, look at thousands of views. I want thousands of views with my 17 subscribers.
Yeah.
It's just not how it works. And the reason that I really want you to get that, again, I don't want this to sound like I'm prescribing this super uphill battle. It's that on certain platforms, we don't have the ability to change human behavior, and we don't have the ability to change digital algorithms. We do have the ability to change our relationship to all of that.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that I will add to that is when you're early on in your career, it's actually easier. Like when you're earlier in your, like YouTube, let's say, it's actually easier to have higher percentages. When the numbers get really big, like our YouTube channel, 25,000 subscribers right now, our percentages are actually going down. That's just a function of when the audience gets bigger, the percentages start to go down. So when the audience is smaller, the percentages are actually higher. But there isn't a way to get 100% of the people to show up. There just isn't a way. Doing the things, and the more convenient the things are that we tried, the harder they all are. Everything that I'm talking about is now harder because it's more convenient for us, which means it's automated and it's digitized. But if you were in a room of 100 people, they'd all pay attention, especially the ones that show up. and you could do the things that could actually get their attention.
Mm.
But for most people, going into a room of 100 people, it's inconvenient. That's tough. That gets me right in front of all my, my bigger challenges. Okay, well, that's the nature of this marketing world.
Mm-hmm.
The easier it is for you to do, the easier it is for them to ignore. And somebody's listening.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have started to pay attention to because of this exact thing is how many times or how long have people listened to me before I knew they existed.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do our events, we usually ask,
Mm-hmm.
how many videos did you watch before I knew you existed?
Right.
Before you subscribed to the channel, before you joined an email list, before you reached out to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we frequently get, I watched 30 videos,
Right.
50 hours, 100 hours. Somebody recently said 200 hours. They watched 200 hours of video before I knew they existed.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I share that with you, not because you need 200 hours of video, but me understanding that gets me doing the videos because I know they're listening when I can't see them.
Right.
The lighthouse keeps the light on when the boats are not there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what causes the boats to be able to see the light and then show up. But imagine if at the top of your lighthouse, you refuse to turn the light on until all the boats are already at the harbor. Number one, that doesn't happen. Number two, if your light's not on, you can't see them anyway. Number three, if they found the harbor, they don't need you.
Mm-hmm.
The lighthouse is so the boats can get to the harbor.
Yeah.
But we can't see them
Mm-hmm.
until they show up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a long answer to a short question, but a really, really deep one. And one of the most fundamental changes we have to make
Mm-hmm.
as teachers.
Yeah.
Because the algorithms are not designed to increase teaching.
Yeah.
I want to say one more thing about that.
Mm-hmm.
We could get the algorithms to change. We won't, but we could. As humans, if we stopped being so enthralled with cats falling downstairs and sharing that on social media and telling everybody about how amazing that is,
Mm-hmm.
and actually share life-changing stuff, the media would change.
Mm-hmm.
Social media would change. TV news stations would change.
Humanity would change.
Humanity would change.
Mm-hmm.
Those things only operate according to human behavior.
Correct.
News channels don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook algorithms don't care. There is no humanity in the algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
It's just systems based on the manipulation of human behavior.
Yeah.
And when humans touch buttons, Facebook gets paid.
Yeah.
But what do we do? And I'm not, again, trying to put shame on any of us.
No.
But the nature of life-changing information is different than the nature of mindless on the toilet scrolling information.
Correct.
I mean, just think about it. The next time you're on the toilet, going through social media, how many things do you like and comment on?
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of things do you like and comment on? Mm-hmm. If you just look at your own behavior, you'll recognize, oh, for the most of us,
that's how humans work.
Oh, the algorithms are operating according to human behavior.
Right.
So we actually could start to change this. It would require us to stop feeding the beast with the mindless stuff, mm-hmm. just the entertaining stuff, mm-hmm. and actually tell the algorithms and tell mm-hmm. the news stations and tell the social media platforms, you know what? I'm interested in transformation. Now, number one, if you start doing that, your feed will change.
100%.
Because they're only going to give you what you engage with.
Mm-hmm.
So your feed will change. If we as a society got together and said, we're going to change the algorithms, you guys, we could change it in a day.
Yeah.
But that would require, to some degree, we change human nature. That would require that we actually value what we need rather than what we want or what we can just mindlessly scroll through and waste time with.
Yeah.
All right, I'll stop there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add a couple thoughts. Everything you said was so just really good. The unappreciated thing is so real and valid, and I am confident that there are people who relate to that, and this is not just a you question, right? Sean shared he's one. I've definitely been there. Something that's really helped me in that process is to not pretend that no one is there because there is no engagement. So for me, a lot of this kind of comes back to what's the story that I'm telling myself there. I'm telling myself because no one has engaged that they don't appreciate me. The other thing for me is show up for you. Do it for someone and let that someone be you. Let the message come out of you because it matters to you. And then you appreciate you. You appreciate you. The number of times that I have, and I mean, I do this every day. Good job. That's my high five. Self high five. Give myself a hug. I celebrate myself in the presence of my coaches and my partner regularly. Hey, can I celebrate something? I'm so proud of myself for. I posted something today. I appreciate what I said. You celebrate you. The thing that you're wanting other people with love, because I've been there, right? This doesn't matter. I don't matter. That's a very real story for me that I can reach up and grab real easily. But what I've recognized is that in the moments where I'm upset that somebody isn't giving me something, my check-in is, are you giving that to you? Did you tell yourself good job and that what you posted matters? Because inside of the lighthouse analogy, we're cultivating a relationship with our community. And I just decided that for me, I got to show up for the relationship first without the condition that they need to give me something before I show up for them. So I'm going to show up in this relationship first, and I'm going to show up and I'm going to show up again, and I'm going to show up again, and I'm going to show up again until whenever that is, you decide, hey, I want to be in relationship with that person, whether it's a Facebook relationship, a coaching relationship, a community relationship, whatever that is, I'm going to show up first. And I'm not going to put any expectations on you as my audience that you need to do anything in order for me to show up for you. I choose to believe that what I have to say matters. And if nobody likes it, it doesn't mean it didn't matter, because it mattered to me. And that's why I posted it. And then I post again, right? And this is not like I made this decision and then like the next day I was over this. Right. This is a continual conversation, but these are some of the thoughts that I choose to think in order to help me stay in action inside of those moments where I wonder, is anybody listening? Do I matter? Do they care? Does anybody appreciate what I'm saying? And I know for a fact that a lot of times I've deeply appreciated and resonated with something that somebody said, and it took me aback so far that I didn't even know how to respond or what to respond, and I didn't say anything. So please, again, do not pretend that nobody is listening and you're not changing lives because there is no engagement. Believe me, they are there. The world is so much bigger than what you actually just see.
What you just brought into the conversation that I think maybe we've said once or twice, but we really haven't dissected, is intrinsic inspiration. Yeah. If it matters to me, it matters. The beautiful thing about that is it doesn't require somebody else's approval. Something matters, it gets the stamp of approval because it comes out of you. And then everything else is just icing, and we can make adjustments according to it. But creativity needs to have an intrinsic inspiration. And we've all been programmed according to extrinsic rewards or punishments. Somebody else will tell us if we matter. 100%. Somebody else will tell us if it's right or wrong. Yeah. And creativity cannot work that way. True creativity cannot work that way. It's a process, like Michelle said. And I want to, before we bring this to a close, I want you to tell a little bit more about that, Michelle, because I know you would post things and delete them, and the story that you briefly told just right now when you mentioned, what does it mean about you? Tell that a little bit deeper, because I think that's really important for people to understand.
I mean, the extrinsic affirmation, I depended on that for most of my life. I believed that I didn't know who I was if you didn't tell me who I was. And I believed that what I was saying didn't matter, wasn't valid unless you said so. So honestly, even in those conversations, like I didn't fear negative feedback. I actually feared no feedback, right? Because I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'd rather you tell me that I did a bad job than not tell me anything, because I don't know.
Yeah. So pause there, because that's really the essence of the question. And the absence of a reaction for most of us is actually worse than the reaction that we think we fear.
Yeah.
So I think you shared that you thought you were afraid of people not liking it. And what you realized is that you actually were afraid of no feedback more.
Yeah. So yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, I posted.
Your sense of time is not the same one that I operate with. So I don't know what 2 days ago means to you. Yeah.
Nothing for me. I think it was yesterday. I posted something on my Facebook that was a question that I asked myself for most of my life. It was a very tender post, and it was like, what's wrong with me? And it has gotten so little feedback. So little. Like maybe there's like
As I open my phone and look for it.
Right? Like maybe there's like 3 hearts on it, right? And I post on Instagram as well. And it's also gotten like feedback there as well, compared, right? And in the past, in the story where Sean is talking about, and it was a tender post, because that's a real, like, what's wrong with me? Like, that's a real story that I, again, have very like easy access to. You see the numbers, right? Like people are like, it's not great.
Yeah.
And in the past,
I just reacted to it though. So you went from 4 to 5 reactions.
Is it an angry face? It's probably an angry face. Awesome. And I think there's no comments, right? And usually my posts have a lot of comments and a lot of engagement. And what I'm very aware of, and what Sean was speaking to, is that, I say years ago, but it wasn't that long ago. It was at the beginning of my coaching journey. If something like that happened, I posted something like that, and I got the reaction that I got, by this time, I would have taken it down. I would have deleted it, because I would have decided that meant that it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It wasn't valuable. It was too much. It was too much. That's probably, nobody wants to read that. Nobody wants to hear about that part of your journey. Like, you went a little too far. Like, nobody's going to trust you. Nobody's going to want to hire you as a coach if they know that you think that. Like, right? Delete, 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 delete. That was real. I removed so much content. You guys, if you heard my story when we started like talking about content, I shared, I burned the things I created. Like I was very much like, nobody can know about this. That was a very real story for me. And now, well, it's still there. The post is still there. And I just choose to believe that so it could be in 9,000 different things, but here's what I do. I pick the story that makes me feel the best. So I am choosing to believe that it's really powerful and it resonates with people, and they're not comfortable. and they don't know how to express that. So they're just being silent. And that's the work that I want to do in the world is help people disrupt their thinking and disrupt their patterns and get a little bit uncomfortable so that they make whatever choice they need to make to transform, to change. So I decide that that's what's happening here. I decide that, and then go on and create. But years ago, it would be gone. You wouldn't have even known I posted it. And let me also not pretend that there aren't people who did engage, like who did give me the approval. And here's the other thing, just a little side note.
Yeah, you just dismiss all that other stuff, like
Right,
dismiss all the celebration.
100%. Because now there's people who did love it or did like it, and I'm telling a story that they don't matter. That doesn't feel good to me. And here's the other thing. How many times, now check yourself, how many times have you just hearted something without reading it? How many times have you given a thumbs up to something without reading it or without watching the video because you know that's your girl or your boy and you just want to support them? How many times? Because I do that shit. I do. I'm busy. I'm on the toilet. I got 5 seconds. Let me say, oh, yeah, Sean did something. I'm kidding. I listen to your stuff. I listen to. But like sometimes I don't read the whole thing.
I was going to jokingly say, do you just heart stuff while you're on the toilet? But I didn't want to say that. But then you went ahead and connected it for me. So thank you.
But like, I'm using my time. I've said there's so many weeks in a day. So sometimes I'm loving because I'm supporting that my friend is showing up. I'm supporting that one of the coaches that we mentor in our programs is showing up and doing videos, right? That's what that is. So don't you tell the story when you know, and I see people, I do. If you do that, then don't pretend that that's not what they're doing to you. So just because, and I'm not saying y'all that did engage with me that this is what you did, but if you do it, it's possible that the heart, it was just somebody else supporting you who didn't read it. So tell yourself the story that's going to feel the best for you so that you can continue showing up and creating content. Because if I was all up in my head, like I've been in the past, about what that means about me, I wouldn't have created something this morning. I wouldn't have posted something again today. I would have been weird showing up today because I would want to be like, well, I didn't get any engagement the last time I showed up. So let me say something that is going to get the engagement that I want to get so that I can feel better about myself. And that's a journey. I mean, I've been in the personal development work since 2013, and I've been in this work as a coach since 2016. So this didn't happen overnight. You guys are doing the things that are the process of this journey.
Those are two really important words, process and journey. It's both. It's process. It's a journey. We're not conditioned to enjoy either of those. We're not conditioned to learn that way. Yeah. We're just conditioned to take a step and get a thing and take a step and get a thing. And the idea of posting and getting is also the employee mind. It's the transactional mind. I do a thing, you do a thing. I do a thing, you tell me I'm good. I do a thing, you tell me I'm okay. And then that becomes, like you said, we want to pre-decide, or not pre-decide, but we want to be pre-approved. We want to make sure that people will like us before we even give them a chance to like us. And then that cycle goes in the wrong direction, and then it becomes a condition. And then it's, I can't until everybody's going to like my stuff, or until I'm perfect, or until I get the engagement that somebody else gets, or it's just, we place all these restrictive conditions on ourselves. And what we want you to know is they're just conditions. They're not who you are. Yeah. And the conditions that we live under are because of the conditioning we've experienced. It's not who you are. It's just how you've been conditioned to behave, and what you've been conditioned to fear, and what you haven't yet been conditioned to value. Yeah. So the good news is, all of that can change. If it was just a flip of a switch, I'd have that product on my website and sell it for $1 million.
And I bet people would find the $1 million to pay for it.
They would. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd sling that via infomercial. Get super rich. So the message is, it's possible. It'll take a while. I don't know how long.
Yeah.
the less important the time is to you, the faster it'll go. That's what I'll tell you. The less restrictions you place on yourself, the smoother the process will be.
Mm-hmm.
The less expectations you place, the faster, the easier, and the longer it will last.
Mm-hmm.
So much of this is just a function of our relationship to the process, our relationship to ourselves. I want to seed this thought and then we'll open it up another time. But there's a really powerful concept in neurolinguistic programming called the map and the territory.
Mm-hmm.
The map is what the ground and the journey actually looks like, actually is.
Yeah.
No. I flipped that. The territory is what the journey actually is. The map is what we perceive it to be and what we experience going through it. But the concept is the map is not the territory, meaning the way we perceive things is not the way things really are. It's just our perception of the things. It's our projections, our expectations. The beautiful thing is we can collapse the map or we can create a better map. We can tell ourselves what we want to tell ourselves that will actually produce us speaking more or us feeling better without even changing the territory. So it's that relation that can fundamentally shift if we're willing. And there's not a single person that I've ever met that is incapable, but most people are unwilling.
Yeah.
And that's your choice. All right. We'll see you in a couple months for class number 20.
You're a mess.
If you weren't here at the beginning of the video, that's a callback. Don't worry about it. We're just joking. Class number 20 is tomorrow. We'll give you the third assignment in the challenge. What challenge that we're running that most people don't know about? Take care, everybody. Tell us what landed and whatever questions you still have about this conversation. But really let us know what the effect of it was for you. And especially if it allowed you to post something that you wouldn't have posted or do something that you wouldn't have done. If you take the inspiration and act on it, we really want to celebrate you for that.
Yeah. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Bye.